I felt his eyes on me from across the room before I even looked up. The Manhattan penthouse glittered around us, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city lights below, but all I could focus on was the magnetic pull drawing my attention to him, Ryan, my boss's brother, the one person I absolutely shouldn't be thinking about the way I was thinking about him right now. His gaze was steady, intense, and when our eyes finally met, something electric passed between us that made my breath catch. The corporate party hummed with conversation around us, colleagues nursing drinks and networking with practiced ease, but suddenly, none of that mattered. He moved through the crowd with quiet confidence, his presence commanding attention even as he kept his focus entirely on me. When he finally reached where I stood by the bar, the space between us felt charged, with possibility. "Emma," he said, my name rolling off his tongue like he'd been waiting all night to say it. "I was hoping I'd see you here." His voice was low, warm, with just enough roughness to send a shiver down my spine. Before we dive deeper, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe if you're enjoying this story. Your support means everything, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The conversation started innocently enough. Work, the city, casual observations about the party swirling around us. But there was an undercurrent to everything, we said, a tension that made even the most mundane topics feel loaded with meaning. When he leaned closer to speak over the music, his breath warm against my ear, I felt my pulse quicken. "Want to get some air?" he asked, nodding toward the private lounge that overlooked the terrace. I knew I should say no. I knew exactly how this would look, what it would mean if anyone saw us slip away together. But something about the way he looked at me, the quiet invitation in his voice, made resistance impossible. The lounge was dimly lit, intimate in a way that made the party behind us feel like another world entirely. Through the glass doors, I could see the celebration continuing, but here it was just us and the soft glow of ambient lighting. He poured 2 glasses of wine from the bottle sitting on the side table, his movements unhurried, deliberate. "2 unexpected encounters," he said, raising his glass to mine. The crystal clinked softly, the sound somehow more intimate than any words we'd shared. The wine was smooth, warming me from the inside as we settled onto the plush couch that faced the windows. The conversation deepened, became more personal. He told me about his travels, his business ventures, the way he saw the world. I found myself sharing things I rarely discussed with anyone, drawn out by his attention, the way he listened like every word mattered. "You're not what I expected," he said after a comfortable silence had settled between us. "What did you expect?" I asked, genuinely curious. He smiled, that slow, knowing expression that had been driving me to distraction all evening. "Someone more cautious. You have this reputation at the office, you know, the focused, ambitious one who doesn't mix business with pleasure." Heat rose in my cheeks. "Maybe I'm more complicated than people think? Maybe you are." His eyes searched mine, looking for something I wasn't sure I was ready to reveal. "The question is, how complicated are you willing to get?" The question hung between us, heavy with implication. I could feel the warmth of his presence beside me, close enough that I caught the subtle scent of his cologne, clean and masculine, with hints of cedar and spice. When I turned to face him fully, something shifted in the air around us. "That depends," I said, my voice softer than I intended, "on what you have in mind." Instead of answering with words, he reached out, his fingers tracing a light path along my arm. The touch was barely there, but it sent electricity shooting through my entire system. My breath hitched, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, of the effect he was having on me. "We shouldn't," I whispered, even as I leaned closer to him. "Probably not," he agreed, his hand moving to cup my cheek. "But I've been thinking about this all night." When he kissed me, it was soft at first, tentative, giving me the chance to pull away. But I didn't want to pull away. I wanted to sink into this moment, into the warmth of his lips against mine, the gentle pressure of his hand at the back of my neck. The kiss deepened naturally, my body responding before my mind could catch up with all the reasons this was dangerous. His other hand found my waist, drawing me closer until there was barely any space between us. I could feel the steady rhythm of his breathing, the warmth radiating from his skin through the thin fabric of his shirt. When his fingers traced along the hem of my top, just above where my jeans sat low on my hips, I gasped softly against his lips. "You're trembling," he murmured, pulling back just enough to study my face. "I'm nervous," I admitted, surprised by my own honesty. "Good," he said, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "So am I." There was something reassuring about that admission, the knowledge that I wasn't alone in feeling overwhelmed by whatever was happening between us. When he kissed me again, I let myself fall into it completely, my hands finding the solid warmth of his chest, feeling his heart beating as rapidly as mine. His touch grew bolder, more confident, fingers trailing patterns against my skin that made me arch closer to him. Every point of contact sent waves of sensation through me, building something I hadn't felt in far too long. When he whispered my name against my throat, his voice rough with desire, I thought I might come apart from the sound alone. But just as the moment reached its peak intensity, just as his hand began to slide lower, the sound of the lounge door opening made us both freeze. We pulled apart quickly, guilty as teenagers caught in the act, turning to see who had discovered us. Sophia stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable in the dim light. My coworker, someone I'd worked alongside for years, taking in the scene with eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. My heart hammered against my ribs as I waited for her reaction, for the inevitable lecture or threat to report what she'd seen. But instead of the accusation I expected, something else flickered across her features. Interest, maybe, or recognition of something she understood better than I did. "Sorry," she said, but she didn't move to leave. "I was looking for a quiet place to make a call." "No problem," Ryan said smoothly, though I could hear the slight tension in his voice. "We were just talking." Sophia's smile was knowing, amused, even. "Of course you were." She stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind her with a soft click. "Mind if I join you? The party's getting a bit intense out there." I should have said yes, we minded, should have made excuses and returned to the safety of the crowd. Instead, I found myself nodding, curious about what would happen next, drawn in. By the way, Sophia moved across the room with newfound confidence. She settled into the chair across from us, her posture relaxed but her eyes alert, watching. "I have to say, Emma, I've never seen you look so alive. Work has been stressing you out lately." Heat flooded my cheeks again, but there was something in her tone that didn't feel like judgment. If anything, she seemed almost approving of what she'd witnessed. "Sometimes," Ryan said, his voice carrying just a hint of challenge, "people need to step outside their comfort zones." "I couldn't agree more," Sophia replied, her gaze moving between us with obvious interest. "Emma's always been so careful, so controlled. It's nice to see her letting go a little." The conversation continued, but there was an undercurrent to it now, a tension that seemed to include all three of us. Sophia asked about Ryan's work, his travels, but her questions felt like a dance, each one designed to reveal something deeper. And throughout it all, I remained hyper-aware of Ryan beside me, of the way his fingers occasionally brushed against my hand, of the looks he gave me when he thought no one else was watching. "You know," Sophia said after we'd been talking for perhaps 20 minutes, "I always wondered what it would be like to be the kind of woman who takes risks, who follows her desires instead of always playing it safe." "What's stopping you?" Ryan asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. She laughed softly, but there was something wistful in the sound. "Fear, mostly. Fear of judgment, of consequences, of not knowing how to ask for what I want. Sometimes," I heard myself saying, "you don't have to ask. Sometimes you just have to be open to possibilities." The words surprised me even as I spoke them, but they felt true. Sitting here with these two people, feeling the energy crackling between us, I realized I was tired of always being the cautious one. Tired of letting opportunities pass by because they weren't safe or predictable. Sophia's eyes met mine, and I saw recognition there, understanding. "You're right," she said quietly. "Maybe it's time I stopped being so afraid." Ryan looked between us, and I could see him processing the shift in dynamics, the way the conversation had moved beyond polite small talk into something more charged with possibility. When Sophia rose from her chair and moved to sit on the other side of the couch, closer to both of us, the air in the room seemed to thicken. "Is this okay?" she asked, but she was looking at me when she said it, as if my approval was what mattered most. I nodded, not trusting my voice. My heart was racing again, but not from nerves this time. From anticipation, from curiosity about what was unfolding between the three of us. Ryan's hand found mine, his fingers intertwining with mine in a gesture that felt both grounding and electric. His other hand reached toward Sophia, offering the same connection, the same invitation to whatever this was becoming. "We don't have to do anything," he said, his voice gentle but charged with promise. "We can just see what feels right." What felt right was the gradual dissolution of boundaries, the slow exploration of touches and glances that had been building all evening. Sophia's fingers traced along my arm much as Ryan's had earlier, but her touch was different, softer, more hesitant but no less affecting. When she leaned closer, I could smell her perfume, light and floral, mixing with Ryan's cologne to create something entirely new. The first kiss between Sophia and me was tentative, questioning. But when I responded, when I let myself sink into the unfamiliar softness of her lips, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about Ryan anymore, about the forbidden attraction to my boss's brother. This was about discovery, about allowing myself to experience things I'd never imagined wanting. Ryan's hand moved to the back of my neck, his touch anchoring me as I explored this new sensation. When Sophia pulled back, her eyes were bright with wonder, with the same amazement I was feeling. "I've never," she started to say, then shook her head. "I mean, I've thought about it, but never." "It's okay," I whispered, surprised by my own confidence. "We're all figuring this out together." The evening continued to unfold in ways I couldn't have predicted. Touches became bolder, more exploratory. The three of us found a rhythm, a dance of give and take that felt both natural and revolutionary. Ryan's experience, his quiet confidence, guided us when uncertainty crept in. Sophia's wonder, her genuine excitement at discovering new facets of her own desires, added an element of joy to everything we shared. When Ryan's hands moved to the buttons of my blouse, his eyes searched mine for permission. I nodded, my breath coming faster as cool air hit newly exposed skin. Sophia's fingers traced along the edge of the fabric before it fell away, her touch reverent, amazed. "You're beautiful," she whispered, and something in her voice made me believe it in a way I rarely allowed myself to feel. The compliment was echoed by Ryan, his hands and lips exploring with the same appreciation, the same wonder. Between them, I felt cherished, desired in a way that was both overwhelming and exactly what I hadn't known I needed. As barriers continued to fall away, both literal and metaphorical, the three of us created something entirely our own. Sophia's initial hesitation gave way to bold exploration, her natural curiosity driving her to discover what brought pleasure, what drew gasps and soft cries from both Ryan and me. Ryan, experienced though he was, seemed as amazed as any of us by the chemistry we'd created, by the way we moved together like we'd been doing this for years instead of hours. The city lights continued to twinkle beyond the windows, but the outside world might as well have ceased to exist. In the private sanctuary of the lounge, we created our own universe, one where usual rules and expectations held no power, where the ambitious marketing manager could let go of control, where the cautious coworker could embrace desire, where the boss's brother could be just a man overwhelmed by unexpected connection. Time seemed fluid, unmeasurable, pleasure built, and crested in waves, shared between us like something precious and rare. Each touch, each kiss, each whispered word of encouragement or appreciation added another layer to what we were building together. When the intensity finally began to ebb, when we found ourselves tangled together on the wide couch, skin warm and breath gradually slowing, none of us seemed eager to break the spell. Sophia's head rested on my shoulder, her fingers tracing lazy patterns against my stomach. Ryan's arm encircled both of us, his own breathing deep and satisfied. "What happens now?" Sophia asked quietly, voicing the question we were all thinking. "Now," Ryan said, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of my head, "we remember that some nights are meant to change everything." I thought about work, about Monday morning and office politics and all the complications this evening had undoubtedly created. But lying there, surrounded by warmth and satisfaction and the knowledge that I'd discovered parts of myself I'd never known existed, those concerns felt distant and manageable. "I don't regret this," I said, the words coming out stronger than I'd expected. "Whatever complications come from it, I don't regret tonight." Sophia lifted her head to look at me, her eyes soft but determined. "Neither do I. For the first time in years, I feel like I actually know what I want." "And what's that?" Ryan asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. She smiled, the expression transforming her face into something radiant and confident. "More nights like this, more moments where I'm brave enough to reach for what sets me on fire." As we eventually began the process of putting ourselves back together, of returning to the world beyond the lounge doors, I realized that Sophia had articulated something I was feeling too. This wasn't just about one forbidden night with my boss's brother, though. That had certainly been the catalyst. This was about recognizing that I'd been living a half-life, always choosing safety over passion, predictability over possibility. The party was still going when we rejoined it, though the crowd had thinned somewhat. We moved through the remaining guests carefully, maintaining appropriate distance, playing our roles as coworkers and acquaintances. But underneath the surface performance, energy still crackled between us, promises and possibilities that would need to be explored. As the evening wound down and people began to leave, Ryan approached me one last time at the coat check. "This doesn't have to be complicated," he said quietly, his voice meant for my ears alone. "But it doesn't have to be simple either. Whatever you're comfortable with." I met his eyes, seeing sincerity there along with the heat that had started this entire evening. "I'm not sure I know what I'm comfortable with anymore. Tonight changed that." His smile was understanding, patient. "Good. Growth usually starts with a little discomfort." The taxi ride home was quiet, Sophia and I sitting in comfortable silence as the city blurred past the windows. We were both processing. I realized, trying to understand what had shifted inside us during those hours in the penthouse lounge. Emma, she said as we neared my building. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you, I replied, meaning it completely. I never would have imagined. I never thought I was capable of something like that. Maybe we're both more complicated than we thought, she said, echoing Ryan's earlier observation. As I made my way up to my apartment, as I finally allowed myself to fully process everything that had happened, I realized that Monday morning would bring its own challenges. There would be looks to navigate, careful conversations, the delicate dance of maintaining professionalism while acknowledging that fundamental things had changed between us. But for now, in the quiet of my bedroom with the taste of adventure still lingering, I felt more alive than I had in years. Whatever complications arose from tonight's choices, I'd deal with them. Because for the first time in too long, I'd chosen passion over caution, possibility over safety, and that felt like the beginning of everything. Have you ever had a night that completely changed how you see yourself? A moment when you realized you'd been playing it safe for too long? I'm curious about your thoughts on taking risks when it comes to desire. Drop your experiences in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, smash that like button, subscribe for more intimate tales, and hit the notification bell so you never miss when things get interesting. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.